Hi, and thanks for joining us. I'm David Goldstein, President of Health Options Worldwide. This webinar is going to be part one of our healthcare reform series, and we're going to focus today on how healthcare reform is going to affect individuals and employers. And next month, actually March 1st, is when we'll do part two, which will focus on the effects of insurance companies as well as Medicare and some of the wellness programs that are stipulated in the new law. So let's begin. As you can see on the screen in front of you, this is a very, very complex and complicated bill. And unfortunately, most people, including the ones that created it, don't really understand it and can't really break it down. I mean, this is the longest and most complex bill ever enacted in the history of the country. So for today's purposes, again, all that we want to accomplish is we're going to break this down and show what some of the cause and effects are going to be in regards to individuals and employers. Now, the one thing that pretty much everybody can agree on is that this is going to be an ongoing debate. This healthcare reform crisis and polarizing effects that's having on the country is not going to go away anytime soon. In fact, it's going to escalate throughout the next election cycle and onward, as we'll see throughout this presentation. The other thing that pretty much everyone can agree on is that prices are going to go up and so are premiums. So let's talk a little bit about some of the current issues regarding healthcare reform. Now, the bill is going to be implemented over 8 years, and it's going to come in 3 waves. The first wave are those provisions that came into effect last year, those that are coming into effect this year and then for the next 2 years, and the majority of the changes are going to take place in 2014 and beyond. Now, why all the ongoing debate? Well, just the other day somebody asked me, they said, Dave, Congress passed the bill. It's a law now. So why the debate? Why is this an ongoing issue? And I told them, I said, the short answer is because this is an overhaul of 1/6 of our economy, soon to be 1/5. And, that's a really big deal. Now, the debates don't just end there. What's actually happening is a lot of states have banded together. In fact, I think it's about 26 in total have banded together and have sued the federal government on the basis of, is this constitutional or is it not constitutional? And the biggest challenge that's gotten the biggest press is the individual mandate. Now, that made huge press yesterday when the federal judge ruled that basically not only is the individual mandate unconstitutional, but because there's no severability in the bill, that the whole entire healthcare bill is therefore unconstitutional. Now, what the basis of that ruling and what the arguments are is the question, can the federal government force an individual to purchase a good or service? Now, the judge yesterday said no, and there's been other federal judges that have said yes, that the government can. Basically, this is not going to go away, and ultimately the Supreme Court is going to have to make their final ruling. Now, something that's gotten a lot less attention is the court challenges dealing with equal protection under the law. And basically what the law does is it says that some states such as Florida are going to get breaks when it comes to Medicare Advantage, and then other states are going to receive significant cuts. That's not equal protection under the law, and you can't just have one state benefiting at the expense of another state. It doesn't work that way in the Constitution. So that's another challenge that's out there. And again, the Supreme Court's going to have to probably make their ruling. The third challenge out there that really a lot of people don't understand has to deal with commandeering. Now, I'm certainly not a legal expert, and I find this to be very complex, but I'll do my best to break it down. See, this deals with the dual sovereignty that's established in the Constitution. And what that means is Congress and the federal government can deal with matters that deal with interstate matters such as commerce from one state through the next, and whereas states and state congresses deal with matters that are intra-state. So the issue here is that with this health care reform bill, the federal government are actually forcing the states to do certain things that deal with states' rights and states' powers, and then it also has the states doing certain things that deal with federal powers. Thus, there's actually a dual channel of commandeering back and forth between the feds and the states. This is going to go to the Supreme Court, but typically the Supreme Court actually turns down all matters dealing with commandeering because they don't want to get involved when it comes to separation of powers as directed by the Constitution. So we'll see what happens in this case as well. Now, the House, as probably most or all of you know, the House recently voted to repeal the health bill. And what did that do? Well, I don't know. It kind of looks like it's more of a symbolic vote than anything else. I mean, Republicans ran with the campaign promise that they're going to vote to repeal it, and that's what they did. But what they also did was further polarize the country to those that are for the bill and those that are against the bill. And what's that going to produce? Basically, an ongoing debate, which, as you can see, is kind of the theme of this presentation. What the House did, in essence, is by voting to repeal the health bill, they ensured that healthcare reform was going to be the central focus for the 2012 election cycle, and obviously primarily with the election, presidential election, that is. You see, one of the areas that makes this so hard is you can't just repeal one part of the bill without repealing the whole thing. And you might have heard the slogan, "Let's amend it, not end it." I know I have, and many of you might have as well. Unfortunately, that's not really possible. It has to go back with the severability clause, and that's what the judge yesterday was talking about in his ruling. Typically, actually, I think in just about every piece of legislation that's ever been enacted, Congress always puts in what's called the severability clause. And what that does is it allows you to take out certain components and keep others in there. Well, healthcare reform does not have any severability clauses in there. So you can't really take one area out without affecting everything else. And that's why there's this continued debate. Either you're going to have it or we're not going to have it. Now, as we can all see, I mean, looking at this map clearly, there's a need for people to have insurance, especially if you're from the bottom half of the country. I mean, there's clearly a need, and that's what, you know, health reform should do is help people. 85% of the country has health insurance, 15% doesn't, and we need to help those 15% that don't have any.